Hello! We are officially halfway through my pregnancy. I am at 20 weeks today and just want to reflect on everything I've learned so far, my thoughts, feelings, some of my experiences, and hopefully that can be helpful to some or relatable to others, depending on what your journey looks like in pregnancy, or if you've yet to experience it or you've already experienced it. I started preparing my body for pregnancy about 6 months before we actually started the process of trying. I knew that, infertility is something that a lot of people experience, and having issues with being able to successfully get pregnant. And so I wanted to really take a good look at my health and do everything that I could to prepare for that, so that we hopefully didn't experience some of those things that can be related to health issues. And so I knew, looking into my health in general, I wanted to clean up how I was eating, my exercise. I had about 20 pounds I wanted to lose, and that's not to say that you have to lose weight in order to get pregnant, but I just wanted to be the healthiest version of myself that I could be in order to move forward in that process. And so I lost about 20 pounds leading into, that 6-month period before we actually did get pregnant. I changed up a lot of things in my lifestyle as well to make myself the healthiest version I could. So we switched a lot of our foods to whole foods, really eliminated processed foods in my diet, eliminated soda, sugary coffee, switched to black coffee or coffee with cream, eliminated a lot of seed oils in my diet as well. And so we make beef tallow at home using the cow that we buy each year. And so I did a lot of my cooking with beef tallow. I still do coconut oil, avocado oil, olive oil, those oils that are a lot more anti-inflammatory, and that helps me to lose weight, but also just put me in a really good place health-wise. I also went through my different toiletry items, so my shampoo, my conditioner, my body lotion, my body wash, makeup, skincare, and found the most natural, organic, lower ingredient options of these that I could. And I definitely recommend looking into everything that you put on your body every single day. I read something that women can put up to 300 different chemicals on their face and on their body before they go to work in the morning. And so knowing that I wanted to give myself the best chance of getting pregnant, I wanted to make sure that I was really paying attention to what went in my body, on my body, and I believe that that was really part of the success that we found when we did get pregnant. And so when it actually came time to, when we were ready to start that process, I had gotten myself into good shape, eliminated alcohol as much as I could, still enjoying the last few drinks, knowing that if we were successful, it would be a long time till I had a drink again, but changing up my lifestyle, diet, exercising. We got pregnant in September, and so I spent a lot of my summer running and strength training, and again, just continuing to be healthy. And when it came to my actual cycle that we got pregnant in, I had read about the effectiveness of taking Mucinex during that time and using pre-seed as well. And I did both of those things, and we were successful in our first cycle of trying. And so those are all the ways that I prepared my body for pregnancy, successfully got pregnant. Of course, consult with your doctor if you're struggling with fertility, but I think looking into when you decide that you're ready to start trying to get pregnant, really take a look at your lifestyle and changing it up. I think that I don't know that we would have been successful as quickly as we were if it weren't for some of those changes that I made. And so definitely something that I'm very proud of, that I made these changes in my life for my now daughter, who is on the way, and definitely something that I recommend to all my friends who talk about wanting to start a family of their own. Finding out that we were pregnant, it was not, I don't even have a video of it. It was not one of those movie moments. You know, I was very on top of, I was tracking my ovulation with ovulation strips. I used the app Pre-Mom to see what my levels were at. So when I knew that I was at peak ovulation. And so once I was through that part of the cycle, I started taking pregnancy tests, I believe at 6 days past ovulation. I saw my first barely faint positive at 8 days past ovulation, and it's funny because I honestly thought my eyes were playing a trick on me. There have been a lot of times where I would say to my husband, like, I think I see a line, I think I see a line, and there was totally nothing there. And so you definitely get line eyes, especially if you're like me, and I was testing several times a day because I was just so excited, anxious, wanting to just know yes or no whether this cycle was the one. And so at 8 days past ovulation, I got my first barely faint line. The next morning at 9 days past is when I for sure saw the line. There was no question. I had taken a digital that morning and it was still negative, but later that afternoon I got my first digital positive, which definitely was, holy cow, this is real, it's really happening. And I told my husband, he was leaving to go watch the Mizzou game for the day, and we had this little Mizzou onesie that he had bought maybe a year or so ago that he saw at a thrift store and just thought, oh, I'd love to have this for my kids one day. So I went and got that out of the closet, and I had the test that said pregnant, and just said, you know, I think you might need to take this with you today. And we had a big hug, an exciting moment, but not super tear-filled. I see a lot of videos on TikTok or YouTube, and definitely think to myself, my experience was just more so like, whoa, okay, this is positive. Really a relief too, right? After you take, I mean, I don't even want to try to count how many tests that I took that week before I did get my positive, but after taking tests and tests and tests that aren't positive, finally seeing that line was more so just a relief of, okay, it happened, you know, it was successful. And you know, I think a lot of shock too that there was success in my first cycle. You know, I come from a family of good fertility. I have a lot of siblings, a lot of cousins, but I just definitely was mentally preparing myself for the fact that this process could take a really long time. And so the fact that it was positive in that first cycle was definitely more of a, okay, that was easy. And a little bit of guilt going along with that too of, whoa, what did I, you know, why do I deserve to have such an easy experience with this? I know that that's not the right mindset to have, but definitely something that I was thinking at first, like, whoa, why was that so easy? But obviously incredibly grateful. And it was such a fun process. We told our parents right away. Pretty much anybody that we knew right away. And that was just such a wonderful experience, of course, leading into our first appointment, which was at 7 weeks. And I think, without a doubt, this is one of the most nerve-wracking parts of pregnancy, at least that I've experienced so far in this first half, which is that wait before the first appointment, you know, is we got a positive test, but that's the only proof I have. Is this even real? You know, of course, praying for the health of the baby, seeing a heartbeat at that first appointment, all the things that can go wrong, right? And so we found out that we were pregnant at the 3-week, 4 or 5 day mark. And so that month-long wait, I think it was a month exactly from when I called my OB to when our appointment actually was. And so it was really dreadful waiting that amount of time. going into that appointment, seeing the heartbeat for the first time is, you know, as many moms can relate, it's just a moment that you don't ever forget. Just, this is real. We're really having a baby, and really, really special. And from there, we were able to move forward with telling more of our extended family, more of our friends as well. And that's really what that first appointment experience was like, and still the shock that this is really all happening to us still, but just being incredibly grateful. I will say that I am extremely lucky with how my first trimester went. Honestly, so many of the symptoms bypassed me to the point that I was concerned, is this normal? I experienced very, very mild amounts of nausea. I only actually got sick once. I definitely did have, you know, if I waited a little too long between meals, I would feel a little bit nauseous. I did have a handful of days where I was pretty couch ridden and just felt really uneasy, but I cannot say I fully experienced morning sickness in the way that I've seen so many people portray, and I have no idea if that's a stroke of luck, if it's something that I did. But I just cannot express enough how lucky that I feel that I didn't have such a miserable first trimester. My biggest symptoms in my first trimester, I had cramping really bad constantly. And I know I read a million forums and watched a ton of videos. A lot of women experience this. It's normal as there's so many changes going on in your body, but I definitely did experience it for the majority of my first trimester. I was also extremely tired. The exhaustion in your first trimester is no joke. Everyone says that, and it is really true. I definitely did have that experience. I think in my first trimester, I don't think I stayed up. There's no way I stayed up past 10 o'clock ever, but I think I was in bed most nights by 7, 8 p.m. It helped that my pregnancy aligned with going from summer to fall, and so as I was getting more tired, it was getting darker sooner, and I was able to go to bed early without feeling like I was missing out on so much because it was getting darker earlier anyway. So that was really the biggest symptom that I would say that I had, was just being so tired and experiencing some of that cramping as well. One thing that is super important to me, and was super important to me both preparing for pregnancy, like I mentioned earlier, but I really committed to myself to stay active during pregnancy. And there's a few reasons why I think that's important. One, I think it's important from a labor perspective, and we'll get into that a little bit more, but you know, I wanted to make sure that I stayed in as good of shape as possible because I don't want to have a terrible labor experience. This part of the video might bite me later if I do have a bad experience, but I wanted to just prepare my body as much for labor as possible. A lot of people, especially when I go to my doctor's appointments or talking to friends that have been through labor before, everyone refers to it as a marathon, right? Labor is a marathon. It's a huge event. There's a lot that goes into it. It's exhausting. And so, you know, I really just had that mindset of, well, I wouldn't go run a marathon without training for it. And so I don't want to feel that way about labor. I want to feel really strong for it. I want to really take care of my back, especially as my body is growing so rapidly and my back is really carrying the brunt of that. And so staying active during pregnancy is something that is so important to me. I'm so proud of myself. I'm halfway through my pregnancy and I've exercised, I think, every single week. Multiple times a week, or at least I try to. There's definitely been some weeks that have not been perfect, but now that I'm in my second trimester, feeling, you know, more energy, not feeling any sickness at all, then I am able to commit to it a lot more. But in my first trimester, it definitely was a mental test for me on the days that I didn't feel my best or I was truly exhausted to keep up with exercising. And I'm really proud of that. And I know that labor too is a mental challenge, right? And you're trying to get yourself through it and stay calm and stay present. And I got to kind of exercise that part of my brain in the first trimester by making myself show up to the gym or go on a run or go on a walk and pushing through those workouts on the days that I didn't feel my best, and just reminding myself that I'm testing that part of my brain that I'm going to have to tap into during labor as well. In terms of diet, I definitely have leaned into the cravings that have come in for me. In my first trimester, you know, I wanted to do everything that I could to avoid feeling nauseous. And so I was really on top of eating first thing in the morning, eating a lot of fruits. I would often do a fruit smoothie with grated ginger in it in the morning, as I know ginger is the top thing that's recommended for nausea. And I believe that that contributed to some of my success with not really throwing up or feeling too sick. And so definitely being on top of eating the first thing when I woke up, trying as hard as I could to have a balanced meal. I did experience a lot of aversions to food in the first trimester, which I know is a pretty common symptom, but meat was one of them. I could not stand the smell of it or the look of it. I couldn't go grocery shopping for a couple of weeks because just seeing meat made me just want to gag. And so trying to supplement my protein with not wanting to eat meat that much and finding recipes that kind of hid the meat in there, which was funny because I felt like a toddler, right? Where you're trying to sneak their veggies in for them. I felt like I was trying to do that to myself to get that protein in. So luckily that went away. I only experienced that for about 5 or 6 weeks. Right when I got into my second trimester, that went away and I started to feel more like I could eat meat and not feel so disgusted by it. And that was nice. It's such a weird symptom. It's so weird that our body does that, but I definitely did experience it, and I tried to stay on top of my diet as much as I could with that. Really, with my diet in pregnancy, you know, I'm not restricting myself at all. I let myself eat whenever I'm hungry, of course. Whenever I have a craving, I always fulfill it, but I just try to do a good job of trying to check off boxes, make sure I have fruit every day, do my best to have a vegetable every day, drink as much water as I can, and that's kind of the extent of it. I'm not on any sort of a specific diet, but it can definitely be hard on those days where everything sounds gross, or if you are experiencing nausea, to try to find foods that do keep you healthy but still satisfy that. And I will say what everyone else says that has been through pregnancy, which is just do what you can to survive, honestly. When we got to the end of my first trimester, it was time to learn the gender of our baby. This was such an exciting process and just crazy to me because everything changes from there, right? The rest of your life, what it looks like, you know, with what the gender of our first baby was going to be, and picturing what their life was going to look like, who they were going to be, what their name was going to be, that, you know, just so much of what the rest of my life looks like as a mother was like determined with this one test. And not to say that one gender or another affects it in that way, but just, you know, I was picturing if we were having a boy, what his whole life would look like, who he would be, what I would be as a boy mom, and all of that, and had those same visions with the girl. And so just so exciting to get to find out what we were having. And so we did the non-invasive blood test to determine the gender. We took that at 11 weeks. It took about a week or so to come in, and we found out we were having a girl. And I do wish that we had that recorded because it was a little bit more of that, you know, movie TikTok moment. And We didn't do any sort of fancy gender reveal. We just opened up the test, and I woke up in the morning that we got the results in, and saw that it had come in the middle of the night on my phone. And so I woke up and went running out to the living room. My husband was already awake, and I said, it's time, it's time, it's time. And so we opened up the laptop, and luckily all the other things that they test for came first. So we were able to determine her health and that everything was going well. They weren't anticipating any issues. And then lastly saw that the word female, and I just cried. Oh my God, it's gonna be a girl. And I just felt like it was a girl. Although I know so many times women feel like it's one and it's gonna be the other, and I'm sure that that is gonna happen to me at some point during my journey becoming a mom, but I really did feel like it was a girl, and I kept seeing the girl name that we have picked out all over the place. It was in books I was reading, it was on the news, it was in billboards. Like, I was seeing her name everywhere, and I just felt like that was a sign that we were having a girl. And so when we were, I felt validated that those signs were actually real, and it was just a really special moment and so much fun to get to go home. It lined up with Thanksgiving, that we had found out right before Thanksgiving, and so we told all of our family members when we were at our different Thanksgivings, and it was just really special and fun and so exciting. And my husband was just meant to be a girl dad, and I'm so excited to see them together. I just think it's going to be so magical. My second trimester has been honestly a walk in the park. They say that, and it's true. I will say, they say you get your energy back. I will give a caveat to women who are watching this, that maybe you just found out you're pregnant, or just wanting to know what the experience is like. Your energy doesn't go back to pre-pregnancy energy. It's just not as bad as your first trimester. So if you get into your second trimester and you're like, wait, I'm still kind of tired, that's totally normal, or at least it has been my experience. It's been great to have a little bit more flexibility with the foods that I'm craving, and not having so many aversions to food. And so I feel like my diet has gone back to normal fully in my second trimester, and I'm trying to really be on top of fruits, veggies, protein every single day. I'm still exercising right now about 3 days a week, and I do 1 day of hot bar, 1 day of hot yoga, 1 day of hot Pilates. Of course, I'm sure you probably just said to yourself, wait, you shouldn't do hot classes when you're pregnant. I did get this approved by my OB. I did hot classes the 2 years up to getting pregnant, and so my body's really used to it. I make sure to eat before I go, and I always take extra water with me, and it goes great. So that has been something that I have been loving, especially as it is so cold where I live. And so getting to get out of the house, go do a hot class, and you know, I really enjoy doing bar and Pilates because I feel like it keeps my back really strong. There's a lot of hip mobility movements, and I know that those are so important going into labor and postpartum, and so for me, that's the best choice. I also do strength training, and I try to run. Again, it is the middle of winter, but I will go up to our gym that's by our house sometimes, and I try to do some cardio. I am getting to the point where my belly is definitely there, and my center of balance is not as great as it was pre-pregnancy, and so running and doing cardio, it's not as easy as it was. I'm hoping to be able to still be able to run and do cardio all through my pregnancy, but I know that there might come a day where it just isn't possible, and it definitely is very challenging right now. So if you are like, how on earth are you running? I promise it is in no way impressive. I cannot do a mile anymore. I am out of breath. I take a lot of breaks, but I'm really just trying to push myself both from a mental barrier perspective, again, doing some of that prep for labor and pushing when I feel like I can't anymore, but also just to, you know, keep myself up into cardio and try to keep my body in a little bit of good shape in terms of being able to still run and do exercise like that. I do experience some challenges with Pilates and bar just in terms of my belly getting in the way, but my instructors all are wonderful with modifications, putting all of that together for me, and it's been something I've been really enjoying doing, and I'm hoping that I can keep up with until I actually give birth. I've talked a lot about labor and prepping for labor, and a lot of that comes with my hope and plan and goal of having an unmedicated birth, which I did not realize how controversial this was going to be. And I say this because I, of course, have talked to some of my friends and family and people that I know about my intention of having an unmedicated birth, and am shocked by the lack of support that I get for this. I did not expect that at all, and, you know, interested to hear if you guys who are hoping to have an unmedicated birth, or if you did have one, or if you've ever said those words out loud, if you've experienced this. I think that what I have learned is people who have given birth previously, everyone is very prideful about the way that they chose to have birth, and I've noticed can get very defensive about it. But for me, you know, to me, I'm like, I don't care how you give birth. You can do it however you would like. I have noticed people are very weirdly against unmedicated labor, and I don't know if that's because when I say I'm wanting to do it, if I'm talking to someone who had a medicated labor, maybe they feel like I'm judging them, which of course I am not. I also have never said I'm not going to end up with an epidural because I have not met myself in labor yet. I just am hoping to have an unmedicated birth, and so definitely am interested to see if anyone else has had that experience. It's very interesting to me, the lack of support that I have gotten from wanting to do that. I feel very judged. It's very weird. But regardless, I feel very confident in this choice. And if you're wondering why are you interested in an unmedicated birth, honestly, it has just felt right since the moment I found out that I was pregnant. There's been no part of me that has swayed from that idea. I have just felt like, yes, I want to do everything I can to have a natural labor, fully natural labor. And I have a few kind of thought processes as to why that's the option that I'd like to pursue. And one is knowing that my body was truly meant to give birth, right? And to have babies. And so I want to honor that and let my body do as much as it can on its own, right? And so my hope is to avoid induction, avoid an epidural, avoid a C-section. Again, I am not holier than thou. I know that there may be medical reasons why I have to do these things, and I'm not opposed to them. I think that they're wonderful tools that are excellent medical advances that we have available, and I know that there are a lot of scenarios in which that will be the best option for me, and I'm not going to be stubborn and not do them. My hope is just to not go into labor signing up for all of these interventions knowing that it's just not the natural process, right? And so I will do them if my health and safety or my child's health and safety is at risk, but I'd really like to just experience birth the way that God intended and the way that my body was created to do. I've also watched so many beautiful stories here and on TikTok, and I've talked to people that have done labor, both unmedicated and medicated, and I've just heard so many good stories about the recovery process of an unmedicated birth, being able to move around quicker, you know, kind of get back to your normal self a lot quicker compared to having to be medicated. And my mindset is that I'd rather deal with a little bit more of a challenge during labor than a greater challenge during recovery when my daughter is here. And so again, this may totally bite me in a few months when I give birth, but my hope is to prepare for that. I also just want to pass along just advice to be gentle with women when they're sharing their birth plan. It's definitely something that, and I don't get offended when people say, well, you know, you're not gonna be able to do it, that's not the best option, you're gonna end up with an epidural. You know, I don't get offended by that because normally this is coming from people who have not had an unmedicated labor and so they don't know, but definitely I can understand why women do get really defensive about their way of birth, because it's like, well, what the heck? Why do you care? So yeah, that is my plan. I have been, you know, doing as much as I can to mentally prepare for an unmedicated birth. My husband is very on board with it, and you know, he is learning alongside with me the best coping mechanisms, tips and tricks, and luckily we do live very, very close to the hospital that I'll be delivering at, and so we'll be able to be at home as long as possible, which I know is something that is a really important factor in having a successful unmedicated birth. But of course, if anyone has had success with an unmedicated birth and has any sort of advice or tips, or if I really am totally crazy and it's not worth it, just let me know, honestly. Just let me know. But yeah, that is my plan with labor. I could not feel more confident going into labor. I'm a very anxious person in general in my life, but I feel very confident in my decision to go unmedicated. Again, this is before meeting myself in labor, but I feel like my body was meant to do this. I am preparing my body by staying strong and in shape. I will do all of the tips and tricks that I read and I watch in videos to help to progress my labor along naturally and to manage pain as much as possible. But it's really not something I'm scared of. I know that, you know, every sort of pain that we talk about in life, everyone compares to, is it as bad as childbirth? Which can be a little nerve-wracking, like, oh, okay, I'm about to do that thing that every single pain gets compared to, but it's just gonna be so worth it for me. Again, it's a natural process. I signed up for this, right? I knew what I was getting into. I knew what the end of this pregnancy was going to be, but it's going to be so worth it to meet my daughter. I could not be more excited to meet her and to care for her and to become a mom. And so labor really doesn't scare me. I honestly am more so just amped up to conquer it. I want to show up. I want to kick butt. I want to be strong. And I want to be really proud of the person that I am in labor, and I'm really looking forward to just being able to prove to myself, like, you are as strong as you've been telling yourself, and you were able to have that great labor that you've been hoping in your head. So definitely not scared at all about labor. Very excited to give birth, very excited to meet my daughter. And while that's a few months away, we are planning for all those big things that come up right before you give birth. We have our shower is planned, it's underway. We're very excited. It's gonna be in the spring, and we're gonna do a Peter Rabbit theme. It's gonna be very, very cute. My mom is a teacher and very crafty, and so she's gonna make it really beautiful. But I have my registry put together, which was really hard because I have no idea, right, what's good to use, but I definitely utilized watching a lot of videos here on YouTube, reading a lot of reviews, and honestly just kind of going with what I thought looked best as well. So we've got that all put together. We are slowly preparing our home for our daughter's arrival. We have converted some shelves in our living room to bookshelves that we will put all of her various books on. We've put our nursery together. We've started to put our nursery together, which I showed in my last video. And we're kind of just trying to figure out how to fit all of the little things that she needs into our home. And so having the bassinet next to my bed, having a changing table in our bedroom, converting our buffet in the living room to also be a changing table, using our living room to have a rocking chair because our nursery is upstairs in our upstairs level, and so we don't want to have to go up and down the stairs with a newborn all the time to be able to rock her to sleep. So we're trying to keep as much as we can on our main level, as our bedroom is on our main level, but continuing to figure out how to fit things in without having her totally take over our house, which I know might be a naive mindset of mine, and she might just totally be about to take over our house. But I'll document this as the process goes along and how we are finding ways to fit her things into our living space without making it a total baby universe. But all in all, halfway through pregnancy, it has not been a bad experience. I won't say I love being pregnant. I'm hoping that I look back on being pregnant and love it, but not having a lot of energy and, not being able to eat whatever I want, especially in that first trimester, and feeling restricted by food aversions was really challenging. But just also a lot of the hormonal changes have been challenging too. And so as of right now, I don't love it. I'm so excited for what is to come at the end. I'm hoping that this second half of pregnancy turns me into a pregnancy lover. But, I'm just so excited for what's to come. I know this second half is where things really get real. While I do have a bump going, I know that it will be undeniable here in this second half of pregnancy, and just, praying and hoping for her continued good health, and really looking forward to, experiencing this second half, and really excited to get into labor and meet her in a few months, and just so grateful for what the process has looked like so far. But of course, I've got a lot of time left. Any advice that you guys have, any tips, especially as it relates to the second half of pregnancy and unmedicated labor, or just anything that you wish that you knew going into the second half of pregnancy and labor, I'm all ears. So thanks for being here. I hope you'll subscribe and follow along, as we've got a long way to go in this pregnancy, and I'm hoping that you'll stick along on the journey with me.